Sifferlin's egg noodles. You have to have flour, eggs, and yellow food coloring. Now, if you want to make a smaller batch than what I'm making today, you'd use 4 eggs. It depends on how many noodles you want to make. I'm going to make a large batch, so I'm going to use 8 eggs. Okay, so break the eggs into a Then what you're going to do is you're going to mix these eggs. I take a fork and I mix them out. And then I take my food coloring. It depends on how yellow you want your eggs. I just squirt a bunch of in there, and then I see how yellow it is. And that's about enough. Then you take your flour. If there isn't any, it's just like making a pizza. You just put your flour in as much as you want, and you just keep mixing it until you have a flour dough. And you just keep adding some more flour. Add some more. And the reason why I use 8 eggs is because we have such a big family. If you're not gonna have a big amount of people, you can just use the 4, like Grandma Bricker used to make. And you just keep mixing like that. And then after a certain while, so you can't stir it anymore, you have to use your hands. And they get really messy. It's just like making a pizza dough, really. And then you'll have to probably use some more flour so it's not sticky. Because remember, you're going to have to roll it out. And when it gets to a point where it's like that, like a ball, and you think you can roll it out, what you do is you take a rolling pin and you put some flour on the rolling pin. Then you put some flour on your cupboard like that. And you break off a piece of that dough that you mixed. And you put it on your counter. And then you're going to roll it. Now you want to roll it as thin as you can. And you just keep turning it around on your counter. Keep adding more flour. Keep adding more flour to your rolling pin. Keep rolling until it's as thin, because if you want to make thin noodles, then you've got to have this thing. Keep moving the flour around on your counter. Grandma Bricker used to be able to get these really thin, but I don't have much space, so you gotta do what you can. Just keep doing this till it's almost like a pie dough. And it gets bigger and bigger as you roll it, and thinner and thinner. Okay, then what you do, you've got to take it over to a place where you can lay them on. Grandma used to lay them on towels on her kitchen table. So you take... Okay, and now we're going to go over and we're going to roll it up like that into about 4 pieces so that you can get it over to the table. And then we're going to put it on the table on a towel. And hopefully it's thin enough. And you just open it up like this. It's going to be, wet from the eggs. And you lay it like that and do as many as you want on each towel. Then what you're going to have to do is it has to dry. And this is the long part, because it depends on what type of day it is, if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's sunny, and you let it dry. Now, as it dries, you're going to turn it over, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. Okay guys, these have been sitting here for about 2 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it like this, turn them over. Okay? I'm going to just take it like that, turn them over. The other ones are done. You make sure they're dry, And before you cut them, you make sure that they seem dry enough so that you can pick them up, okay? And you roll it. Like that, okay? Then you take it over to your cutting board. You lay it down. And you start, I always cut off the end. And then you start cutting. You try to cut them as small as you can. Like that. Okay, so when you're all done cutting it, you'll have them like this, and you just kind of roll them like this and go like that on a pile. And then what I do is I make them into a pile, and I just kind of let them sit for a while longer to make sure that they're all, here's one that you can break off, that they're all dry enough. Or if they're not, you can let them sit out for a little while longer. Okay, then I take a bag, a storage bag, and I put them in a storage bag. Like that. Close it up. And you, like that, get the air out of it. And you put them in the freezer. And you can freeze them and use them whenever you want. Okay?
So how do you make them once they're unfrozen?
You just let them sit out.
And what do you do with them?
Well, you cook them in chicken broth.
How much chicken broth?
David, it just depends how much you want. They thicken as you cook them because of the flour. Okay?
Do you boil them?
No, you cook them. You put them on the stove in chicken broth, and you cook them low. And you have to keep stirring them. You have to watch them, and you have to keep stirring them. And that's it. They'll thicken up because the broth will thicken up because of the because of the flour.